Welcome back to another hour of Scotch Hour. I am Noah.
And I'm Jesse.
Well, we have hit episode 113.
It's like Friday the 13th without the Friday.
Or the other 100 days.
Jason's dead, right?
Maybe.
God damn.
The first one was his mom, though, right?
I don't even know.
Well, in any case, thank you to all of our new subscribers on YouTube. We greatly appreciate that, as well as our subscribers on Rumble and all of our podcast platforms. Please also like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. We are actually trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, so that way we can open up some more features to the YouTube platform. And we really need your help to do that. So even if you only listen to us once, just hit the like button. You don't have to ever listen to us ever again, or hit the subscribe button, and that way you can help us out in reaching that goal. Also, if you do hit the like button, that just helps promote our podcast as well. And please share it with other people if you do enjoy our content. Also, we would like to ask you to leave some comments. Let us know what you like about our podcast, what you don't like about our podcast, any ideas that you think that might make it better. If there's any topics that you like us to address during our Smarter Challenge section. If you're in the Denver area, if there's a restaurant that you want us to review, let us know about that as well. And if there's a Scotch within reason, and when I say within reason, I'm basically saying for right now, we're not really looking at things too much over $1,000. but yeah, if there's a Scotch you want us to review, single malt Scotch though, we'll be more than happy to do that as well. So just leave that in the comments. And for tonight's agenda, I guess we have one of my favorite distilleries that we're going to revisit here, but is the Macallan 15-year double cask. We haven't tried this one yet, so I'm super excited. We had the 12-year double cask, and we've had the 12-year triple cask.
And the 12-year sherry cask.
And the 12-year sherry cask. And those were all excellent. So I'm really looking forward to this 15-year here. And then we have our shout-outs and get-it-togethers. Restaurant review, which is Las Podroncas. I don't know. I butchered that. Nailed it. And then our Smarter Challenge, which we will be discussing Missing 411 by David Pilates. I probably butchered his last name too, so I apologize about that, sir. But with that, let's go ahead and get this thing rocking and rolling.
Scotch Review.
All right. Well, as Noah mentioned, this week's Scotch is the Macallan 15-year double cask single malt Scotch. So this is a Highland single malt Scotch. And man, where to even begin? The history, the lineage, all of the facts behind this Scotch are never ending. The basics that they would want you to know. The Macallan double cask 15-year-old reveals the unrivaled commitment to the mastery of wood and spirit for which the Macallan has been known since it was established in 1824. It's pretty old. So, yeah, it's been a few years, right? It is an expression of our enduring desire to go beyond ordinary, to seek out the extraordinary and create peerless single malts. And that's actually a pretty interesting statement to make, to seek a desire to have peerless single malts, to be one of a kind, so to speak, on a level of its own where no one else is an equal. And then they continue with, our reputation for the extraordinary is characterized by the exceptional oak cask for which the Macallan is renowned, sourced, crafted, toasted, and seasoned under the watchful eye of the Macallan master of wood. The hand-picked casks are delivered to the demanding specifications of the whiskey mastery team. Once filled, the maturing spirit remains undisturbed in the same cask for a full 15 years. And this is something that's very unique about this version of the Macallan, is that it is in that same cask for the full 15 years. A lot of times you'll get a 12-year or a 16-year or a 20-year, a 40-year, and it is seasoned in multiple casks throughout that aging process. And so the fact that they're leaving it in the same cask, man, I am excited for this one. It is the oak that makes the greatest contribution to the quality, natural color, and distinctive aromas and flavors at the heart of the single malt whiskey. The perfect partnership of Oloroso sherry seasoned American oak and European oak casks creates the distinctive warm character of the harmonious single malt. The delicate and indulgent flavors of American oak, including honey, citrus, and chocolate, balance the Macallan more traditional characteristics of rich fruits, sherry, and wood spice. So this is definitely going to be man, I have zero doubt. Like sometimes we go into these scotches and I'm like, this might be okay, or this might be great, or this could be good, or could be fantastic. And this one, man, it's going to be up there no matter what. One thing I do love about the Macallan Scotches is their commitment to the different characteristics. And when I say that, I'm talking about the color, the flavor. They keep a traditional packaging process for most of their Scotches. I'm also talking about the, the finish. And at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot to say about this Macallan Scotch. Did you want to jump into a couple of tours?
Yeah, actually, they don't really do tours.
Man, I saw something on there where like they did it for a while and then they stopped. And then 2021, they opened their shop again. And that looked like the extent of it.
Yeah, so what they're doing now is called experiences. So they're not tours. So they have what's called the Mastery Experience. It's a 4-hour long experience. It's 250 GBP or GBP, Great British Pounds, or it's approximately $312 USD.
That's not Adele, right? Like 250 GBP.
And
too soon.
Yeah, too soon. But here, this process, The experience delves deeper into the whiskey making process and starts with a welcome dram at the Macallan Whiskey Wall before enjoying a dining experience at their at the kind of like the restaurant they have there on location, and then that's going to be paired with wine. So you're getting like wines, dram, food, and it's like a huge experience there, and it's really worth it. Then they got the discovery experience. And here, this takes guests throughout their proud heritage, exploring the journey from acorn to glass. And this is approximately $62 or 50 British pounds. It's about 2.5 hours long. And this runs Thursday through Sundays until July 31st of 2023. Then they got the Story of Oak experience. Now, this experience is 35 British pounds, 43 USD. It's every day at 10:30, and it runs from Thursdays through Sundays from now till July 31st. And this one, says you experience the impact of exceptional oak casks have on the maturation of the Macallan spirit. And then they have the curated collection. This collection is approximately $93 US with 75 British pounds. And here you relax in the Macallan bar and journey through the unique tasting flights of 3 expressions of the Macallan. That's going to be expertly selected by their bar team. Then they got the Macallan Through the Ages. This one's 175 British pounds.
We're getting closer to our taste.
I think the first one's really our taste.
250?
That one was the 300 and something.
Oh, all right.
With the dinner and the wine.
Yeah, we're in.
That was the Mastery experience. But the Macallan Through the Ages, 175 British pounds or 218 USD. And here they're going to join us at the Macallan bar for the exclusive flights of 3 of our high age expressions, not ours, but the Macallans. And That that happens at about 12:30 in the afternoon every day. Once again, Thursday through Sundays until July 31st. Then they got the boutique experience. This is like where you go and shop, and they're kind of like their little store there on the premise. There's no really price point there, but they do have two others which you have to inquire about. One is called the Pioneer Experience. Here you join them for a theater production that brings to life the characters from their history that have played a role in shaping their future. And then it's you'll be transported back through time, and they go through all that stuff while enjoying a picnic lunch by the banks of the River Spey, and the opportunity to taste some special whiskeys along the way. So you get lunch, you get drams, and you get a movie.
You get a show.
But I think this next one, I think this is really, really up our alley here.
Cha-ching,
This is The Extraordinary Journey with Bentley Motors.
There we go.
This here, you explore the idyllic Speyside, Scotland, and the Macallan Estate Bentiaga hybrid with an incomparable chauffeur driving experience. So they're going to drive you around, and you get to check out their estate and
Drink scotch.
So
So it's like James Bond. You're just not driving.
yeah, and I'm not sure. Like when you're talking about their history, because I was looking up those USD price points while you're doing that. I do remember in one of our earlier shows, and I'm not sure if you had revisited, but after they had closed down, or I'm not sure if it was they closed down or they were bought out again, they had some issues where they were going to sell some of their more aged scotches.
Yeah, 60 years. So
And then it was found out that those were fraudulent scotches. So now they started putting those holograms on there. So I didn't know if you had brought that up because like I said, I wasn't really totally paying attention, but
not yet. But as we talk more about,
sorry about that.
No, it's all good. But that is a key point. Is there was a point in, and I think this is true for anyone. Like, let's face it. If you're a boy, a girl, you're going to go through an aging process. You ultimately become a man and a woman. And if at some point you didn't test the waters or the scotches, you probably didn't mature to a real ripe age. Well, I don't know that it was the Macallan family themselves. Clearly it wasn't. But one of their owners or proprietors decided to try to sell, as you mentioned, some 60-year-old expressions that were not truly that. And who knew? You know, you could use DNA testing or the science behind it to test a scotch. Well, somebody did, and they found out it was a fail.
I can't remember if it was like after they were shut down for a little bit or if they were just bought out.
It was a while back. It was in the 90s, and yeah, they had recently been bought out. I don't think it was the Suntory group, but it was another group where they came in and they did some bad things.
Guessing that must have been the group that must have bought them out. Was that in 99, the partnership between Edrigan and Edric? I don't even know how to pronounce that name.
We're just going to say
Edrington.
Dude, maybe
Edrington,
it was Suntory because it does say here 86 Suntory acquires 25% of the business. But
might have been.
Yeah, it was somebody somewhere, and this isn't necessarily. Here's where it gets tricky.
Sure, or William and Grant and Sons. They also bought them out in 99.
I think it was Suntory, and here's where it gets super tricky. Is man. It doesn't matter if it's the business. At the end of the day, one person can make it or break it, or one person can be impacted by all of those business decisions. Somebody along the line sold some bad scotch that wasn't as old as they said it was, which is interesting because, you know, like you watch some shows and once you get to be like 50 years old, no one's buying that.
Right. And didn't the Macallan make it into James Bond too?
Oh, Multiple times, yes. In particular, in the episode where James Bond watches the bad guy shoot the dram of scotch off someone's head, but instead he just shoots her because then the dram falls. And James Bond's only, response when asked, "What do you think of that?" is, "What a terrible waste of scotch." A 60-year, nonetheless.
Was that the very last one?
No, it wasn't. It's not even the second to last one. It's not.
I know it's like they're on an island, right? And like the place is all bombed out and stuff.
Well, yes, that is exactly the scene, but it is the house or the episode where they visit the house he was originally raised in. So it's not Spectre.
Okay.
It's not Quantum of Solace, but it is there in between.
Testing your James Bond knowledge here real quick.
That's right. You guys, we'll give you a couple minutes. You can think about it. We'll give you the answer in just a minute. But first, we're going to talk a little bit more about the history of the Macallan Scotch. So, the Macallan is one of the world's most renowned and respected Scotch whiskey brands with a history that dates back till 1824. With a deep commitment of tradition, craftsmanship, and quality, the Macallan has been at the forefront of Scotch whiskey production for centuries. And that's a key point. Next year is literally the 2-century mark. This article will explore the history behind the remarkable brand from its early beginnings to today. All right, so going back to James Bond, if you haven't already come up with it, it is Skyfall, which is literally the name of the property of which James Bond grew up in the movie named after the house, Skyfall. Early beginnings. The Macallan's origins can be traced back to 1824 when Alexander Reed established a distillery on the banks of the River Spey in Scotland. The original facility was little more than a farmer's barn, but with hard work and dedication, Reed and his family business quickly grew. And in 1887, the company was formally established as Matthew Glow and Sons Limited. The Macallan was sold to Roderick Kemp in 1892, who focused on improving the facilities with a new distillery, and the Macallan opened its doors on Speyside. Following Kemp's death in 1909, the Roderick Kemp Trust was set up to protect the family stake in the business. For the next 45 years, the Macallan operated on 5 small stills, producing quality blended whiskey. And this is a piece that's really key in this point is, man, so many distilleries back then couldn't get the science or the basics right, so they blended great whiskeys with terrible whiskeys to come up with a mediocre whiskey that almost anyone would buy, and most people did. So the expansion of the brand, the popularity of the Macallan steadily grew over the years, and following increased demand, distillery had to expand. Before 1954, the distillery had 5 stills. Over the next decade, it had increased it to 12 stills. By the mid-70s, they had further expanded to 21 total stills, greatly increasing capacity. The brand released a variety of expressions, vintages, and cask types over the years, and by the 1980s had gained a global reputation for excellence. And that's pretty key. It takes time. There aren't any names I know of that didn't take time, decades. When you're talking about long-term product excellence, it doesn't matter if you're talking about a Mercedes or Ferrari or the Macallan, it does take time to build up that reputation. And there's also a piece to me that is about heritage. You can't come out with a scotch next year. I don't care if it is the world's highest rated scotch. If it doesn't have the heritage, give me some time, show me some consistency. That consistency is what will ultimately win for me. So during the 1980s, blended whiskey was on the decline. So the company developed more single malt whiskeys to target this growing market. In 1986, Suntory, the Japanese brewery, purchased 25% of the company from Roderick Kemp Trust. The Macallan is now distributed in more than 100 countries worldwide. In the 90s, the Macallan saw a number of changes, including in 96 saw the remaining 75% of the company purchased by Highland Distillers Limited, and in 1999 they were purchased by a partnership between Edrington and William Grant and Sons. The Highland Distillers, they purchased this for £601 million. I'm in. I'm ready. That's cheap, actually. Like, you really think about what they're pulling in. That was cheap.
It was cheap, and then they also did a lot of great renovations, like with the new visitor center there in 20 something. I don't remember what it is, but it recently opened not too long ago.
Yeah. Tons of history here. We have talked about it on previous shows as well, where we have done, as was mentioned, the 12-year triple cask, the 12-year double cask, the 12-year sherry cask, and the edition number 6. Now, that doesn't forgive or forget the Cocoa Expression limited release. So it is something where we've got a lot of history on some of our shows. Please revisit some of those or their website themselves if you want and care to see more.
Exactly. All right, I guess it's time to undress the lady.
Ah, man.
As you would normally say.
I am ready to undress this lady. And, man, it's simple, but this is a good looking box, right?
It is.
Nothing too complicated here. It is a triangle check, if you will. It's not really a diamond check. It is a triangle check with both flat and glass finishes. The bottle, as Noah mentioned, once you pull it out of the box, does come standard with the Macallan hologram. One way for them to thwart the forgery, if you will, the falsification of a Scotch that is truly theirs. On top of that, they have a unique lid, which is nearly impossible to fully close once it has been opened all the way. And they have a great shape. Now, this is not a traditional fully round bottle. It is more oblong, kind of like an egg if you were to look at it from the top or the bottom. And it is fantastic, particularly with this groove they put in. Always traditional, always classic, always one I love. Simply put, but elegant always.
Agreed.
All right. Well, you ready to jump into this?
Yes, I am, sir.
I am excited. I just want to look at it one more time before I jump in, because we have talked about, as we furthered some of our Macallan experiences, that we have gone from the 12 and now we're reaching that 15-year experience. 18 and beyond is right around the corner. Oh, yeah.
So what is the top? Is it plastic?
The top is plastic, and all I can say is, if you look at the way that they create it so that it cannot be fully put on without some serious work, I believe it's intentional, because I don't think you could make that top out of wood. It has to be a semi-flexible material, and one that won't negatively impact the flavor of the Scotch.
Yeah, I'd imagine that goes back to, I think, what they experienced, and they want to just ensure it doesn't happen again.
But to your point, don't underlook or underestimate the importance of that. Is a well embossed the Macallan logo on the top. That is solid oak, well groomed and prepped for the top. And as we mentioned, it doesn't matter how hard you push, you're going to break that damn bottle trying to pretend that you never opened this.
It's smelling good.
Dude, it's no longer a virgin. Oh, was there any doubt? Like,
no, none.
I'm scared, because this means this is the beginning of the end of this night.
All right, so it is time for us to go into our warp speed and do our tasting notes. So cheers. The Macallan 15, OMG, I guess that's all I gotta say. Oh my God. This expression from Macallan does not disappoint. It really doesn't. I am almost at a loss for words. I think that maybe the expression number 6 is probably the most comparable that we've had to this one, maybe because the Macallan Harmony Collection, the Cocoa version is quite a different expression than this 15. But I honestly think probably the closest out of all of the Macallans that we might have tried comparable to this might have been the edition number 6, possibly the 12, but I don't think the 12 even compares. And I even forgot to do my scoring. That's how much I love this stuff.
It's all good.
I guess, I'll be scoring on the fly here. But I got so caught up in our conversation. I totally.
The Scotch is that good, ladies and gentlemen.
But for the color here, I put deep golden amber. I like this golden amber. This is almost the same kind of color that we got with the Macallan number 6. I love it. I totally dig the color. And if I didn't say that, then I would have also said a deep butterscotch coloring. And I think it holds true because that's what even what Macallan calls is a butterscotch coloring. But I think it's a much darker than just a normal butterscotch color. So as far as the coloring goes, I gave it 5 out of 5 points. I really love it. I really dig it. The packaging, once again here, I think packaging comes to something that goes over the top, has like a wooden box, swivel or whatever to it. So even though they kept it classical and nice, but it's like, it looks just almost like any other one of their boxes that you see from their normal expressions. So I just kept that as a 4. Now the aroma here, when I was going through, I got nice hints of apple with oak spice and chocolate with some sultana sweetness, honey, and butterscotch. And the butterscotch I didn't initially get, but like probably about like 5-10 minutes after it being opened, that butterscotch started to make itself more pronounced, and that is just a nice, inviting, sweet tone to the smell. And I love the smell of the apples in there. I love the oaky spice that you get from it, and every so often you get a whiff of that chocolate, of the chocolateness, and that's always a nice welcome smell, especially if you like dark cocoa or chocolate and stuff like that. So if I were to give this some points, I'm probably gonna give it one of the higher points I've ever given because I do like it a lot. Probably not the high is. I think it's definitely the highest I ever given as far as the aromas go, but I'm giving it 28 points.
All right.
So I really dug it. The palate. Oh, the palate. I love this palate. It starts off with a creamy vanilla butterscotch, and then to me it morphs into an apple crumble with hints of cinnamon and nutmeg, which just makes it totally enjoyable. It's almost like a nice autumn dessert for the palate, but in liquid form. It's just so nice. I love the hints of the cinnamon and the nutmeg. Also, as it hits, goes from the front palate into the mid palate, I'm getting those flavors. So front palate, creamy vanilla butterscotch, mid palate, the apple crumble with hints of cinnamon and nutmeg. Going into my finish and into the finish here, where I get the sultana sweetness of that raisin, and it's medium long with some nice hints of honey, oak, and nutmeg that just lingers in your mouth. And this is a well-balanced scotch from the beginning to the end. There's no heavy spikes anywhere in between. You're not getting not the front palate, mid palate, or the finish. You really hit a spike in there, so it's just nice and smooth, clear across the your whole palate. It's medium bodied, and it's really velvety, if you will. It just like flows smoothly across all parts of the tasting palate, in my opinion.
Black velvet.
And I'm gonna give the palate 29 because I really dug it. And and the finish,
I can't right now.
you can't.
Just wait for it.
And then the finish, I really like the finish, and that will be a 28. So I think I'm roughly like a 90 something. I know that much.
About a 94.
A 94? Where are your points at here? 28, 29, 28. Okay, so obviously,
what are the chances?
what are the chances? We scored it exactly the same. Spoiler alert there. So that was the 94?
94.
Okay, so 94. I did it on the fly. You guys saw me go through it and score it as I went through. Would I take this to a black tie affair? Reluctantly, yes.
I love it.
And the reason why I say reluctantly yes is because do I think it's worthy of a black tie affair? Definitely. Do I think you'll impress people? Possibly, but if they're already like in that realm and where they attend many black tie affairs and stuff like that, I think this would be like minimum standard, really. But when I say reluctantly yes, it's because this is a Scotch I would want to covet and hold on to and not really share and be stingy with. And that's the reason why I say reluctantly taking it to a black tie affair, because I would take it because I think it would show well for you. I think you come across being classy. You come across like you belong, as long as your attire matches the event. Would I take it to a poker game? Definitely not. I'm not going to share it with my friends at a poker game. Now, if a Scotch connoisseur came to my house, or a good friend of mine who loves Scotch came to my house, would I get down sharing with this? Hell yeah. I think this is a Scotch that you can share with someone who would really appreciate it, someone who likes Scotches that one would like to covet and hold on to. And honestly, I would enjoy drinking it by myself, but a part of life is experiences and sharing those experiences with others. So even though I would covet this and want to hold on to it, I definitely think it's an expression that should be shared with someone that would appreciate it as much as I would appreciate it. And yeah, I think it's phenomenal. I love it. And if you can find a bottle of it, I highly suggest you get a bottle of it. I believe it was roughly $175 before tax. I think with tax came close to like $195 or something like that. I found it at Bevy's. That was the last bottle there in Bevy's and Parker. So if you're in Colorado, you can still find one. I'd say grab it and snatch it up.
You said snatch.
I know. Yeah, definitely snatch it up and enjoy it. I think it's great. What say you? I kind of already know.
Snatch is just one of my favorite movies. Always catches my eye.
That movie's a great movie.
I see Snatch and I can't look away. So with that, balanced, I believe, to me, balanced is the beginning of defining this Scotch. And the last time I felt this impressed by a Scotch was with the Dalmore King Alexander III. And the Dalmore, before that it would be the Dalmore 15yr. The Dalmore has put out great Scotches. Before that on our show, it would be the Macallan Edition 6. So there have been a handful of Scotches in our 113 episodes that are here or in the same ballpark. This one is the first of that ballpark where we've been doing our scoring. And it is phenomenal. And balanced is the key word for me as well. Starting with the eye, the color. Much like the Macallan Edition 6, much like some of the Dalmores, it has got that amazing, whether you want to call it burnt caramel or as they do, the butterscotch. That's a perfect name for it. It is a burnt sugar color to this scotch. It is sun-touched. It is beautiful. It is truly a Scotch color that is worthy of eyeing. And I appreciate that because sometimes I see those super fair ones and they're great too. But most Scotches fall in a realm where they do not catch the eye. So the Macallan, with their mix of ex Oloroso and, seasoned American and European oak casks, they have done a great job using that natural color from those casks to deliver this. Phenomenal. So for me, the packaging, as Noah has mentioned, it's not the next level, but it's not basic, which has become the norm for recently for our taste of Scotch. That's pretty common, but the color is a 5 on the nose. Again, balanced from beginning to end. Butterscotch. Seasoned apples. A little hint, and I love this, of chocolate right before oak. So butterscotch, apples, chocolate oak. Primo, I'm right there with you. 28 on the nose. The palate is the win at 29 because... And if you guys haven't done this and you haven't tested the flavors, the nose and the finish that you get from different Scotch glasses, it is amazing to really do it for yourself and experience that because it is different. For me, in the long run, I'm loving the bigger glass. It is my preference. However, when first out of the chute, the little glass gives it a much better nose. So, but on the palate, starts ripe with honey, oak, mild cinnamon, balanced nutmeg, and creamy vanilla. You got to really consider all of that. So you got honey, oak, cinnamon, nutmeg, vanilla. It's all creamy. Man, it is like a dream to go with creme brulee. It almost suits, almost fills the bill. Amazing to think about that. Especially when, particularly in the bigger glass for me, I'm getting that nose of butterscotch before the other pieces. But all of that transcends from this great nose. Amazing palate for me at 29. To the finish also a 28. Total score a 94. And again, the finish for me, raisin, oak, spice. But the key word here is it's balanced. There is no piece of it that is offensive. It's pretty standard for the Macallan to do exactly what they have done here. 43% ABV for a Highland single malt Scotch from the Macallan is normal. You don't taste the alcohol. You taste the creamy vanilla with a hint of cinnamon and chocolate and nutmeg, and it's divine. As far as experiences, man, I don't know what else to say besides this Scotch is one of those perfect dates where you go out, might be a hike, might be a lunch, might be, you're just going down a busy street in your local city and visiting a breakfast stop and a pawn shop or, a couple different shops, a bookstore, a used bookstore where you find a great book. And as you continue to venture, then eventually you get lunch and you continue along your way. And man, at this point, you don't even care. You stop and play pool for half an hour, and you're just eating little bits as you're drinking, and you're just having an amazing day. And you finish it up with a primo dinner, and a little movie, maybe some sex. It's literally the perfect date. You finish it off. It does not leave any sense wanting from the eye to the nose to the mouth. It is a solid. I actually feel bad only giving it 94, but I think that is probably proper. It is a solid Scotch. It is a solid date. Would I take it to a poker night? Now, I continue to think about this. I don't go to many poker nights. So if I'm going to a poker night, it's much like a black tie event for me, most likely. I'm not doing this on a whim with people I don't know. I'm doing it with buddies who will also appreciate Scotch. So would I bring it to a poker night? Yes. However, much like yourself, reluctantly. Would I bring it to a black tie event? Yes. And what I will say here is, man, this is a Scotch you bring in. You have every goddamn right to be pretentious, as other people will say it. But when you know what you like in Scotch and you can speak to the Macallan 15, you should be what they think is pretentious, because you're not wrong about calling this great from every sense, and share that with them. Let them know you think I'm being pretentious. Go F yourself. And yeah, by the way, go look up the rating on this Scotch on Scotch Hour. They say it's just as good as I do. At the end of the day, I also covet this Scotch, and more than anything, though, would share it with friends. This is an experience meant to be shared with people who appreciate Scotch, and you should definitely, if they do not know Scotches as well as you do, have a flight, try some of those rougher Highland single malt Scotches with this in the mix, because that's part of the experience. That's that perfect date where you're going from one place to another and having one beer here and then going to the mall or the shop and, the secondhand store and buying a t-shirt you'll probably only wear once, but god damn it, it's the perfect t-shirt that day. Going to the next drink, and you're thinking about like, well, they definitely had their beers 10 degrees cooler in this place, and those beers were better. That is the type of experience that this Scotch is meant for. To me, it's meant to be cherished, and we joke about sinning, and we also do it. They say, do not covet thy neighbor's watch. Well, if your neighbor has one of these bottles of Scotch in his window, covet thy neighbor's Scotch. I will just say it then and there.
So when you say go look up the score, where were you saying to go look up the score at?
Scotch Hour right here.
Okay.
94.
All right, I was just making sure it was Scotch Hour, because I thought you might have meant like a different publication.
No, right here, Scotch Hour. Our scores have been solid. Some higher than the mainstream, some lower than the mainstream, consistent nonetheless.
Do you know what the score was from the mainstream?
I'm guessing it was probably a 92.
I have no idea.
I'm just guessing. It cannot be bad, but based on we haven't been wrong yet. Like when I look at it, I don't look at the scores before we do our show, but every time we've done a show and then looked, we've been pretty goddamn close to the mainstream.
Really?
Yeah, almost always. Things they don't do, they don't consider really the color or the presentation. And I can appreciate that, but I think that is part of the total purchase power. And when people are watching our show, I assume, much like myself, they do care what the box looks like. They do care what the bottle looks like, because to our point, we're talking about, you're going to bring this to a poker night or a black tie affair or cover with friends. Man, if you're popping this on the bottle and you each three of you brought your favorite Scotch that you're going to compare, and ultimately we do compete, right? You're competing with what that bottle and box looks like matters 200%, which is not possible, but 100%.
Oh, yeah. It's anytime you go to like a poker, or whatever, you hang out.
Even a black tie event, you're trying to impress the future in-laws, or make sure that, if you're Game of Thrones style, you're trying to make sure that somebody else's future in-laws know that their future son-in-law or daughter-in-law is making the wrong choice. Bingo, bango. What Scotch did you bring? Ardmore? I brought the Macallan 15.
It's time for our shout-outs.
My shout-out goes to my team at work, and that is, man, they have been giving 100%, trying to reach our goals as a store and a company and a team. Most importantly for me as a team, for one metric. And I try not to mention too many specifics, but whether or not that ultimately comes through the impact they have had from a reporting standpoint means to me, even though they may not be green at the end of the day for the real report, to me, they were green. To improve by what I saw, which was over 100%. That's amazing. So you're reducing one piece or another by 50% or more. The reverse of that would be increasing or improving by 100% or more. That is what they have done for a couple of weeks in a row, but this last week in particular. And I just really appreciate all the hard work because I know it's not easy because I do it with them. I really appreciate that. My other shout out goes to my daughter. She did go out, and these young kids, some of them, not all of them, are doing a pretty good job saving cash really well. And there's no such thing as a good cheap used car anymore, but she did go out and buy a used car with cash, no payments, although I kind of wish she would have started to build a credit history. No cash, no bills, no future obligations in that aspect, but the fact that she was able to do that, great job. So cheers to both of you guys and the team.
My first shout out is going to go to, I believe the restaurant's called Heritage Restaurant. It's there in Wildwood, Florida, in the Paddock Square area. I took my mom there for an early Mother's Day lunch, and the wait staff was phenomenal. The waitress, her name was Zoe. She did a fantastic job. So I just want to give her a shout out, saying she did a great job, and the food there was phenomenal too. The second shout out, I'm going to give it to you, and I'm giving you the shout out for doing your homework and checking to see how our scores match up with the mainstream. I never thought about doing that, but being that you had, I'm giving you a shout out.
Dude, I worry about that sort of thing because I'm like, man, I could be so way off base. And there are some, like, typically right now we're ranging a couple points higher, but I think that's because of the presentation and color points we give versus their scores. But yeah, it's been pretty interesting. It's been fun, honestly, because everyone's tastes differ. Those individuals, typically world-class, the level of world-class sommeliers, they've got, the equivalent of a doctorate degree in wine tasting. We do not, but what we know is what we like. And so the fact that we have, as a team, we as a team have gone out and we've looked at, okay, what do we like? What do we not like? We know there is a different expectation for lowland scotches, for highland scotches, for island scotches, and then within the highlands you've got Speyside scotches, and within the islands there are so many different islands, but we accept and understand all the differences. But at the end of the day, there are still core values to be appreciated. We adapt a little bit more than some of the mainstream as far as, island scotches are going to be different than a highland scotch, but I actually think that's good because from our rating perspective, we share that, and as a viewer, you guys get to see, hey, this is what I can expect from an island scotch. And for an island scotch, for right now, for me, nothing has beat the Ardbeg 19. That is a prime example. I love Lagavulin. I have not had a Lagavulin that beat the Ardbeg Tribon 19. That just has not happened.
That's saying a lot for you.
I know.
All right. Any get it togethers?
Okay, so this is the mix. This is the intermingling, the commingling between shout-outs and get-it-togethers. So as we go from just total shout-outs, the shout-out here, the shout-out portion of the next one, where there's a shout-out and a get-it-together, is for two restaurants, and one of them being the Olive Branch, and the other one being for Maggiano's. And I went on a little flight of lobster ravioli, so to speak, if you will. And so first I went to the Olive Branch and had their lobster ravioli. Man, 9 out of 10 minimum for their lobster ravioli, right? And their limoncello cake, I have to give it a 10 out of 10. It was amazing. I had a tear in my eye. It was so delicious. And the waiter, who has not subscribed yet, unless he's one of those last two in the last day, said he would subscribe because I just let him know. I was like, man, I don't.
Was it the same guy that we had?
Same guy. And I told him, I was like, man, I don't get this emotional with food very often, but your limoncello cake, this is obviously homemade. This is not something you bought somewhere. And the flavor, if you will, balance, profile, any way you want to put it, impeccable. You cannot question it. It was perfect. And I literally, my eyes watered, and he came over, is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, man, I just want to let you know your limoncello cake is that good. I don't get this way very often, but it's that good. So for the Olive Ranch, once again, food, service, definitely go there if you're looking for those two pieces. I still want a little bit more for an ambiance and environment. The person I was with, Marissa, she loved the environment. She thought it was great, especially for a new restaurant. But then I had to do my own flight comparison of lobster ravioli. So we went back over to Maggiano's, did a quick taste of what I thought they had. Maybe it was a one-time thing, a seasonal thing, or maybe I just had a nice wet dream and it was lobster ravioli. The lady there, the server there, let me know, waitress, that they did not have lobster ravioli, but she gave me the option. So we ended up doing their mushroom ravioli with their black truffle oil, cream sauce, and lobster claw meat across the top. I will tell you this, I cannot believe I'm going to say this, but actually beat the Olive Branch's lobster ravioli, even though this wasn't a lobster ravioli, but because it had the flavor of the mushrooms, the truffle oil, the black truffle sauce, the creamy sauce, and then the lobster meat on top, and the way it was all presented and served, beautiful, tastes great. Still, the ambiance there, man, the only reason I don't want to go back to Maggiano's right now is the way they've redone the Denver Tech Center and the Denver Pavilions on the inside. I do not find it sexy anymore. And if I'm going to, I have no problem spending $150 on a meal. If I want to spend $150 on a meal, I just want to know it's sexy. And the meal is sexy, but that's like this little 1 square foot piece of 100,000 square foot restaurant doesn't cut the bill. So, but shout out, Get It Together. Shout out the food. Both of you nailed it. The Get It Together. Please do something with your interior and make it warm. It felt cold. I didn't want to be there.
I do think you're right about the lobster ravioli, because I believe you ordered that when you, me, and Marissa went there for our we had that family dinner, and then we went to go see a movie. I forget which movie that was.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like, I think they had it as a special.
It was a special, yeah. Because I think you got an email or something.
Yeah, and it was amazing. Then this was better.
Well, now you know how to order it.
There we go. That's part of the experience that we talk about that. This is that experience. Seriously, get this, Scotch.
Yeah, so this week I'm not doing any more. Not anymore, but I'm just not doing a Get It Together this week.
All right, so as we go from there, I'm going to get to my true Get It Together.
Okay.
And this one, I've really started considering some things, and it's really for parents to educate their children, because a lot of parents consider this is a teacher's responsibility, but it all comes down to, and this is why teaching is so important, tuition forgiveness for me. So currently, individuals who had student loans, you can't even make a payment right now. I don't know if you know this. I didn't know this because I never took out student loans. I paid all my debts, or my parents paid all those debts. So for me, this is a double negative rub. But here's why it's a truly negative rub, is the best thing I can correlate this to is a fake ensemble date. So here you have Biden, and he is the suitor, right? He's like, hey, lady, you want to go on a date with me? And she's looking to make a name for herself, as we all are. And she's looking for a future, as I believe most of us are. And she's looking for greatness, which, it takes work, but there's a good portion of us which are. And she's like, well, yeah, man, what do you drive? He's like, Ferrari SF90. Come on, that right this way. And she's like, man, that's a nice car. And then she's like, where are you taking me to dinner? And he's like, Barolo Grill, baby. And she's like, all right, this is getting better. And she's like, where do you live? And I'm like, over there in Cherry Hills Village Farm. And she's like, I'm in, all out. And then they go on the date, and she gives herself in every way possible to him. In other words, votes him into office. She's like, you are my man, right? You are my man, Biden. You are my next president. And then all of a sudden he's like, well, that was never really going to happen, but I'm going to keep dragging you along as I can until, I've wasted enough of your time and your money, because you're paying for half of this anyway, if not more than half of it. And then you're just going to either jump ship or fall off to the curb anyway. And that is literally what he has done with the tuition reimbursement program. So the economy was great, and he creates this false program that, as I still see it, is never going to happen, right? He is driving the Ferrari. That's not going to happen. He's not living in the Cherry Hills Village. He's a lawnmower in one of the estates. And with all of this, he's convincing these people, man, we're going to be great together. All along, then he creates these roadblocks, right? Where she could be finding the next real man. I don't know who that man is. You could throw out a name, Trump. I don't know if that's the next real man either. But regardless, he's like cock blocking her from finding a real man. And then by the time she realizes it, man, he has been like, well, you've wasted 2 years, 4 years with me, and I didn't make you make any tuition reimbursement payments when you were getting all those stimulus payments and everything else, and you could afford it. But what I did was I stalled it long enough that inflation caught up, and even though you were making twice as much money, you could have been paying off your student loans when you had money to give, and they sent your checks back, and then you blew it on stupid stuff. Some of you invested it. Good for you. Most not. You blew it on stupid stuff, and now you can't afford to make those payments. Hey, your next payment is due now that you can't afford to make it. That is literally where this economy is going with this student loan program to me. The get together goes to, man, just do a little planning. And it's not for, like, Biden knew what he was doing. I don't believe for 1 second some piece of that didn't think, with all of the millions, maybe billions of dollars they spend on planning, that they knew where this was going. No, they knew how to abuse the system. And come re-election time, what do you think is going to come up in the next 4 months or so? Oh, I announced my re-election campaign. We're going to go through with this. I'll stall them again. It's just get it together, realize this was always a bad plan because you pay for it anyway in tax dollars.
It's time for our shout-outs.
Man, no, you picked this restaurant and you named it, and I'm like, what the hell is this? What I will say is, to me, it was a win. The restaurant, Las Patron. Las Patroncas. So it is a new little restaurant in Parker, Colorado, off of Parker Road. And man, I thought it was pretty good.
I thought it was phenomenal. Yeah, I liked it.
So if any of you had ever been to, and I walked in once, did not stay for a meal, but the Blue Note, it is where the Blue Note used to be in Parker, Colorado.
Basically, what is it? Hilltop and Parker Road, roughly right around there.
Yes, not far from 20 Mile Road and Parker Road.
So, yeah, for when you first walk in, I think it's still morphing into what it's going to be, because I think you still see remnants of like the Blue Note there, because you have like jazz player paintings of like jazz players on the wall. But yet there's still like a Mexican motif to it, where you have like a lady that looks like from like the Day of the Dead type of thing, or Muertos Day something.
Yeah, Day of the Dead.
Yeah,
big celebration. I want to go. I really do. Brazil.
And I think the really kind of like I think the reason why I picked this here is because on Friday it's going to be Cinco de Mayo. And then for those of you who do celebrate May Day, happy May Day to you. I was really impressed with the place. I thought their salsa was good. They started off right away with chips and salsa. I must have been hungry because when I was waiting for you, I ate all the chips, and so they brought out some more salsa and chips. And I didn't even ask for it. So that kind of was nice that they were super on top of that. I ordered the fajitas, our steak fajitas, and those were really good. I will say though, I think the steak fajitas over at El Mariachi or Casa Mariachi.
Casa Mariachi.
Casa Mariachi. I think they make a better steak fajita, but these steak fajitas were pretty good. I think the food, I would give it probably a solid 8. It was good, not overly impressive. It's a medium plate. It's that medium tier where it's above fast food but below fine dining. The service I thought was wonderful. The waitress was on top of it. They came around just enough, just the right amount of times. So there, I'm gonna give that a 9. And even though the atmosphere it was like part Mexican and then part jazz, I actually thought it like combined pretty well together, and I thought it made it for a unique experience for a Mexican restaurant. So I'm gonna give that an 8 just for the uniqueness of it all. And so I guess that's 8, 9. So I'm gonna give it like a grand total of 8.5. Would I take a first date there? Yeah, I would. Would I meet a friend there? Yeah, I do that as well. I really like the place. I thought, I'll definitely go back there and revisit it and try it again.
I agree with pretty much everything you just said. So, Las Potroncas. For me, I had the chips and salsa first off were good. Nothing wrong there. I agree with you. The waitress was she was fantastic. She was the win. Service was a 9 for me. There was no flaws there. For me, I had the Potroncas Molcaster. It's almost like fajitas, but it has steak and chicken and pork chop and shrimp and cactus leaves and onions and a soupy mix that also comes with everything. It's literally like fajitas with extra. It's like the fajitas on fire. And if you touch the bowl, by the way, it's on fire. The water was still boiling 10 minutes after they delivered it to the table. Watch out. Don't touch hot. Don't learn the hard way like I did. For me, the food, man, it's tough because the food, I agree with you. There is something about Casa Mariachi that is next level. And I don't know if it's the seasonings or what. This dish was dynamite. Would I go there back on a date and share this dish? Yes. And I think that's a key piece of it is like, share this dish. This thing is jumbo. Don't try to eat this on your own, even though I think they do intend it for one person. Share this dish. But I would absolutely share it with a date or a friend and have fun. I think the food and the service were outstanding. So for me, the food is an 8 only because there is that next level where the Casa Mariachi actually does beat it. And I don't know why. It means we need to go back and give it, the full rating scale. Go back from there. The environment was my only opportunity. And I think the biggest piece with the environment was we were there during prime time. I was running late. We were there during prime time, and I wished it would have been a little bit busier. The environment was set up for an old jazz club, so very open. The struggle with that is you immediately know there's no one else there, or there are very few other full tables, and that does have a weird impact. Not that I want a place to be busy or noisy, but it seemed hollow. So the environment is 7, but otherwise the paintings, I agree with you. The Blue Notes old jazz on the wall, they did a nice job bringing in their culture and decor. Overall, to me, the total is still an 8, which is a great score, particularly for a middle range restaurant. Again, I would absolutely go back, meet a friend. I would absolutely take a date there. The struggle right now is it a destination? And in that area, that's the biggest piece for me is because, one of the other things when I really think about a destination anymore is if there's anything within walking distance, or a couple minutes, is that the place I would go? And I'm torn because for me, unless I wanted, I'm not going to walk to the next closest place. If I'm going to drive and I don't mind a 10-minute drive, unless I'm craving Mexican food, I'm still going down to the tailgate or some other place. But right now, man, it's right in the crux. Like I wish I guess I'm going to say a no for a destination right now, which is awkward because I would absolutely meet a date there or go with a friend there. But as far as a destination, it's not a place where I'm like, I want to show this off. But I have no problem going there and feeling like it won't represent. So I need to figure out my own piece there. But right now, it's not rated as a destination, but I absolutely loved it. I think it was a great choice to fall upon your radar and for us to venture to.
All right. So this week, our Smarter Challenge is missing 411. So here we have David Pilates. Probably once again, I might mispronounce his last name.
I think it's Pilates. I think you nailed it.
Right. He is a former police officer who is now an investigator and known primarily for his published book dedicated proving the reality of Bigfoot, and then also going into the what some might call a conspiracy theory about people going missing in the National Forest Services. So, in his earlier years, he actually was an undergrad. He got his undergraduate degree from the University of San Francisco in 1977, and then spent the next 20 years in
San Jose Police Department.
San Jose Police Department, and he was part of the SWAT team. And so eventually, after he retired, he was approached by a National Forest Service person who talked to him about these missing people. And then he goes on to write, I think, about like 10 books. There's about 10 books and 3 movies later. And basically, he has a theory about what happened to all these people, but he hasn't really shared what his theory is about what happened to everybody. But he allows for people to read the books or watch the documentaries to come up with their own theories. What did I miss? Anything there?
That is the basic introduction, and it's fantastic because here is the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen. In layman's term, tons of people go missing in our national forests. And if you want to do some research and be like, hey, Joe Blow went missing in the national forest. He was a 12-year-old male, and he went missing here in Yellowstone National Park. Where's that on any sort of report where you keep record or track that so that I can find out if there might be a trend or something I can follow to resolve a history of these events? That's what you get. You get somebody looking to the side, not looking at the camera, saying, we don't keep any records.
I find it really odd that the National Forest Service doesn't keep records of all those people who go missing in the forest. You would think that there would be some sort of database. I mean, is there like a database in most police departments of like missing children or cold cases and stuff like that?
Let's take it a next level. And this is jumping ahead before we contract and bring it back.
Okay.
What happens when AI has an opportunity to investigate all the reported missing individuals in these areas? All of a sudden, you have exactly what you want cataloged, unless they are controlled. Snowden. Unless they are controlled by the government. So all of a sudden, you don't need a National Forest Service to keep track of these. You can just say, hey, chatbot, GTP, GPT, give me the answer. And you've got it. Things will be blocked. But at the end of the day, the government at some level does have some control, and it is tragic.
It is tragic because, like, I think David Pilates, he eventually had requested to get a list of these people who have gone missing, and the National Forest Service told him it would cost too much money to create the database. And someone came up, I'm not sure if it was in like the original movie, which was the first Missing 411 movie, or if it was maybe during an interview that he had with George Norrie on Coast to Coast AM. But he said, it seems really odd that it would cost so much to make a database when someone could just easily put together a spreadsheet on Excel.
And share it. Shared document.
And share the documents.
Little companies with 20 employees do that. The National Forest Service can't.
Yeah.
Pretty sure there's tens of, not hundreds of millions of more dollars for the National Forest Service.
So, so to kind of go into this a little bit more about like these people going missing and stuff, I think you said you watched one of the documentaries, which was the Missing 411 Hunters. So, which like story kind of caught your attention?
Well, let me back up just a little bit. And not just that. I guess it's not really even backing up, but looking at the whole thing and looking at some of the clips I watched, some of the biggest stories I observed, watched, and saw that were most intriguing is the point where someone goes missing. And one example would be a young boy. And he goes missing, and then not a day or a week or a month, but years go by, and his clothes are found where a search had gone, and they're all neatly folded and perfect. The boy's not there, or the boy is there, and it's like, what the hell is going on? Like, how is this possible? We missed him and he's still alive. Another one is a man reappears and his remains reappear, and they're like, wait a minute, how did he get here? Like, he didn't walk 50 freaking miles to get over here. Not quite 50, but he didn't walk this distance. Like, he would have died before, but how did he get here again in a good shape? So the weird pieces are the anomalies with time and space, and how does a child go missing and then remnants or pieces of clothing appear so long later in perfect condition that it shouldn't be possible. The same with other people.
You said they were folded, right?
Yes, folded.
Like, who's gonna put like a missing kid's like clothing folded like years later?
So what I will say is, not even aliens. Right? Not a Sasquatch, not an alien. Aliens aren't doing that stuff. That's some wild stuff. But nonetheless, the space and time is something that's super interesting, is just because space and time of some of these disappearances and remains found, for example, don't correlate. They shouldn't have been possible or plausible in that sense. Now there's a ton of different other theories, but again, is there another larger sense at play?
Yeah, and there's some other like things to kind of note with these missing 401 mishaps. There are definitely hot spots throughout the United States, like the Rocky Mountains here in Colorado. There's a hot spot here. I think in San Luis Valley, in that mountain range down through there in Colorado, there's a hot spot. There's a hot spot in Utah, and they talk about some other places where you see hot spots. And there's also some like other strange things that kind of coincide here. Like one person breaks off from the group. There's usually bad weather that happens shortly thereafter, like when the search begins or something like that. And I forget what some of I think he had like 7 points in the Hunters.
The biggest piece with the hunters is there were hot spots. Well, this is what I gathered as some of the bigger points is there were hunters. There were hot spots, but we're talking about
Experienced hunters too.
Experienced hunters over a century. I think they said hundreds of years, but like what I gathered was, well, actually, yeah, centuries, hundreds of years of experienced hunters going missing. And it's to those hot spots. Now, this is where theories of the Sasquatch come in.
Or aliens. I think it was in the Hunters one, right? Where some lady was on her property and in the town, I think the kids were like playing baseball and they saw something hovering over like the school or like the little forest area. And then the lady said she saw like some camouflage person. They call it the predator phenomenon.
Let's face it, totally possible. Everyone can say anything they want. Time and space continuums are real. As is time and space travel. And with that, man, they don't make things like the Predator up. They just don't.
So the one, like on Hunter's documentary, the one that really kind of caught my interest was the guy who ended up walking. Was supposed to meet up with his buddies or something like that. But then he goes and disappears. And then later on, like his coffee mug and his thermos with the mug was sitting on a rock overlooking somebody's property.
Yeah.
And I think they were saying like he would have been walking like barefoot because they found his shoes or something and it would have been in snow.
And it was like miles upon miles upon miles.
Yeah. And like if the guy was like distraught, I guess distressed or whatever, he was within eyesight of this property where you could see this house, but he didn't go down there. But it's like he was sitting there on this rock with his thermos and drinking and just chilling out there. And then like a couple more miles away, they found his backpack with his crossbow and stuff. And then that's when they found his remains like even more miles away.
Yeah. Why?
And then like you like listen to like the search and rescue team and they're all like, none of this makes sense.
None of it makes sense. And furthermore, none of it makes sense. Like from multiple aspects, I don't think a Sasquatch is going out of its way to make it look like this is just some crazy. They're not trying to bring attention to themselves. They're going to hide stuff. I don't believe they're that Neolithic that they're not bringing their stuff together. But yeah, different theories I have. I don't even think are theories that these others have, but man, he literally exudes. That is a perfect example, as is the boy in the perfectly folded clothes, exudes potential for. Ready for this?
I am.
Ready for the last subject?
Sure.
Okay, fungus zombies.
Fungus zombies.
Zombies who lose their damn minds, but they remember basics, and they do things like fold their clothes and keep on going until they literally die.
Okay.
No, literally when I was going through all this, I'm like, I like the Sasquatch idea. Scotch Hour fake news. Here we come. I like lots of these ideas, but man, I'm like, if some fungus got into your brain or you became a zombie, which I don't believe bacteria would cause any of these situations based on destinations.
Talking about zombie ants.
Any number of things. Regardless of that, I can see these people being fungus zombies and this experience happening to them. Like that piece makes sense to me.
Okay, so scientifically, right? Supposedly, as far as what we're taught, is that fungus cannot grow inside the body and take over the human brain. However,
that's right.
Yeah, I think it was in India. We did have the first case where fungus did grow inside the body. But yet these people, like the person that the fungus grew in the back of the throat and stuff like that, he had like diabetes and some other health issues, which I think caused for the environment inside his body to where it allowed the fungus.
Dropped.
Yes. And so because temperature dropped. I think this is where you probably come into play here.
National forest, snow.
National forest,
Cold
snow,
as
cold
fuck.
weather, drops the temperature within the body, thus allowing for fungus to get in and grow and possibly take over the mind, creating fungus zombies.
You're right. And the truth of the matter is, scientifically, possibly all the time, we eat mushrooms, fungus, different fungi. You can have hunters and all sorts of people who are told we can eat mushrooms. They learn these things. They're starving. They're out there. They get lost, disoriented, whatever. They eat a mushroom. They get more starving, more lost, more disoriented. Wrong mushroom, eat more mushrooms. Finally get the wrong type of fungus in their system. But meanwhile, all along, these different things, the environment, freezing cold, hunters, typically winters, typically cold, particularly at night, their body temperatures decrease. The fungus has a chance to grow. It's already in there, and it does so.
Okay, I can kind of see that if you like from that one. I mean, in the other show, the regular Missing 401.
We should be writing for The Last of Us. You guys are welcome. Please contact Scotch Hour.
In the first one, I think the disappearances happened more toward. Well, one of them was a kid who happened during wintertime, but he was found alive.
Right, that's whack. By the way,
He was like 20 miles down. Like he was found like little 2-year-old kid goes through a
river.
no, not a river, through a barbed wire fence and found 20 miles down, down the whatever field, found face first in the snow with his coat off and his hat off
And alive.
and alive.
If you guys haven't figured out the math, the typical average human walking at a regular pace is approximately, and this is a little bit high, 3 miles per hour. That means this kid, smaller gait, smaller distance, smaller travel, maybe, if we're lucky, 2 miles per hour, walked in freezing temperatures in the snow, no coat, no hat, 10 hours.
And there was no tracks either. There was no tracks in the snow.
I'm just saying, two things. This is my second theory. Dude, they didn't come up with Predator. That stuff was already going on. And the boy just wasn't a big enough threat. They sent a baby Predator out and they're like, no, I'm waiting until this guy's a Targaryen that's 21 years of age.
And then there's this other one where this kid from Colorado went to go on a hike with some people, and he split off from the group, and they couldn't find him. They had searches. I guess it was in the 90s. You probably would have been, not to date ourselves, but we were probably in college. No, I'm sorry.
I was 5 years old.
I'm
I'm almost 30 now.
They had helicopters, and once, just like you were talking about with this other kid, they went through this area, couldn't find anything. Then these two hikers, a couple, 3, 4, 5 years later, go hiking around this granite rock area. Oh, that's one of the
hunters.
The hunters too. He mentioned this as granite rocks. There's this granite rock area these guys were taking a hike through, and they found a shoe in his clothing folded, and and no scrapes, no blood, no nothing. You found a shoe the shoe looked like it was brand new, and the clothing all folded up nice and neat. And one thing that they pointed out is the dad was told by the search and rescuers that an animal got to the kid. But if that was the case, no blood. Also, no claw marks or the clothing being stripped apart. I mean, maybe it was the fungus, guys, but I think this one happened during the summertime, so I'm not really sure if fungus would have been the case in this one. But interesting. And another interesting thing, and you and I talked about this too, I think at dinner time, the FBI. The FBI comes into these situations, they do the research, and then they tell the local authorities oh, we can't help you.
We've done all we can, AA Ron.
So I honestly think the government knows about these disappearances, has a database, has it has it all logged. And I think what happens is the FBI goes out to these searches, collects the data that they want, and then goes back and they just document it and doing it further research, whatever.
All right, so I'll propose this to you.
Okay.
If you had to come up with two possible potential situations, what's your best case scenario? What's your worst case scenario?
What do you mean by situations?
So I'll go first. Here's my example. My best case scenario is that it's my first threat. It is a fungus that's taken over the mind of certain people in the wild forest. Why this is my best case scenario? Here's why. You guys all think it's the worst case scenario, right? No, it's because global warming. If any of you guys who think global warming is going on is right, the temperatures only continue to increase and fungus only continues to die. Hashtag animals live. Worst case scenario, man, it's the predators.
Okay.
They're only coming. They're going to keep coming for us. And at some point, man, it's just like, all right, well, we've been doing them one-on-one. This is getting boring. Let's just take out the whole planet.
So I think I'm not really sure this would be best case or worst case scenario, depending on how you want to view things.
I'm just having fun now.
Yeah, I get it. No, I agree. I'm going along. I'm playing along here. And I'm not really sure if this falls under best case or worst case, because I think it's kind of screwed up either way. But my first theory here is that I actually think it's part of the deep state adrenochrome harvesting group.
Possible.
I think, so here's why I'm saying this is because throughout the United States and there's other places too throughout the world, but they have what's called DUMBs, which are deep underground bases. They're called DUMBs because they're known as deep underground military bases, but I don't think some of these are military bases. And supposedly, according to some of these conspiracy theorists, that the deep state actually uses these underground bases to kidnap kids or other people, and then they take them down into these underground bases. So as far as the kids that go missing, this totally makes sense. Now, I do think when it comes to some of these adults that go missing, that it's possible that they maybe came across something that they weren't supposed to see. And therefore, they might have saw something or heard something that they shouldn't have seen. And then the people who are the enforcers or the people watching out for these bases or the guards go and take them out type of thing. So that could be my best case scenario. Unless you really hate the deep state and all that stuff, maybe it's worst case scenario because no one would ever think that people would kidnap kids to scare the living shit out of them and harvest them and cut them up to get the blood out to do adrenochrome. Then I guess
Everyone sleep well tonight. Cheers.
My worst case scenario is aliens. And I think it kind of goes along with your predators.
Dude, I fully believe that's the most logical choice.
Because here's the thing. When they do these searches, all of a sudden, the dogs are they sent them, then boom, they stopped. They can't find anything.
They're like, I'm out.
And so it's kind of weird that the dogs all of a sudden lose the scent within just even a couple of feet from right where the person was last seen. That just doesn't really make sense. And then these people, depending if they are found alive again or even if they're not, they're found miles and miles away from where they should have been, right? So it just doesn't make sense unless there's some kind of portals opening or something like that, which...
Anybody want a donut?
Which could be alien influence, or it could just be a weird phenomenon with time portal, portals in time. Because how do you explain a 2-year-old kid walking 20 miles in a snowstorm? You just can't. Is it possible? Sure, I guess it's possible. But when you look at in the interview, the guy. He's an adult now. He actually shows the clothes that he wore when he was a kid because his mom kept the clothes. And you're yeah, there's no way like a kid that's 2 years old did not get like frostbite and die from like the clothing that you just showed. Like the clothing, it was like something like a t-shirt, you know?
Reminds me of that movie that's about to come out called Fetch Fuck. Like somebody was driving their kid off and then they came back.
Oh, that dog movie?
Yeah, Fetch! Fuck!
But yeah, so I guess that's what I would say there.
I agree with you only because not that aliens couldn't be friendly. Use every piece of the world as an example of that's not how it is. So are we genuinely friendly with Russia? No, we're supporting the people fighting against them. So why would we support the people fighting against them? It's all about money.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there is like even we, as we want to be Americans, fighting for freedom. Russia still owns them as far as the world is concerned on a map because the Ukraine never separated those ties appropriately.
Exactly. So overall, I think it was a very interesting, and I don't think we did like a whole lot of justice for the information. I do think people should go and do some research, at least watch documentaries, because it is a very interesting subject, to say the least. But it is really odd that the National Forest Service doesn't really keep a database. The FBI says that they can't help, and these people just go missing with a bunch of factors that that don't align.
That's a good point. We went off on so many single tangents. We didn't spell out as many facts as we probably should. Here are some of the bottom lines, and that is, man, missing 411. At the end of the day, the National Forest Service keeps no track, no log, no record of missing people that we have access to, at least, but they keep no track of any of this for people who go missing in national forests. Now, that seems weird because Aurora Police is supposed to, and Denver Police has to, and Centennial Police is required to, and Parker Police absolutely does. And any of these things we can go and we can track and we can trace, and all of a sudden you get to a National Forest Service, and they're like, nope, they literally look the other way in every interview I saw, looked to the side, and either had no response or nope. And that is something that's very interesting. So why is it that simple? And the next step is, just like with so many other things, that's the next step. Why is it so simple? Why don't we take the few minutes, give them the $100,000, which it wouldn't cost, to create a database where anyone can log in and be like, who went missing where? So if I'm hiking, I might be able to help and look. Why wouldn't you want that? National forests are full of hikers. Why wouldn't you have, what do we call that in Denver when someone goes missing? An Amber Alert? Why wouldn't you have a National Forest Alert unless there is a bigger reason? And that is the ultimate piece. That is the conspiracy, is why aren't they trying? Why have they done nothing to make a potential positive impact with something like an Amber Alert? By the way, we just got a report that someone's missing. Instead, nope, no one missing, and we keep no record of anyone who was reported being so.
So as you were saying that, I came up with another possible theory.
I mean, the Sasquatch is my favorite, but it's not worst or best case.
Here's my other theory. You watched Ancient Aliens.
I love Ancient Aliens.
So you remember there was one episode where
don't probe me.
Where the American Indians they talked about how the ants people came from under the ground and took their ancestors underground until like the Ice Age was over.
Yes.
So my theory is, what if the ant people and that story is actually really true, and there are like ant people or whatever, according to them, that still live underground that we are totally unaware of, and maybe those are what's coming around and snatching these people.
Totally possible, in a sense of, everyone says global warming is already happening. If it's already at the extent where it is, even when we as humans didn't pollute the world, it happened before. So we're already going to get to another ice age. So yeah, they're just preparing for the next ice age.
Possibly.
I like it.
All right. So with that, everyone, if you found this topic interesting, definitely go check out Missing 401 and check out the books or the interviews on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie or the documentaries. All right, Jesse, what do we have lined up for next week?
All right. Ready for this?
Yep.
Only because I got succumbed into a couple of episodes. We are going to do a review. That means I'm going to have to watch a lot more TV of House of Dragons, the HBO show.
Okay, that means I'm going to have to do a lot of TV watching then.
But here's where it gets fun. House of Dragons makes sense, right? So it's a phoenix, not a dragon. We're going to do the Lagavulin, 12-year-old, 22, or yeah.
2022 special release?
2022 special release. The Phoenix back here. It's not quite a dragon. It's more of a phoenix, but we're going to do it anyway. And then, man, how are you feeling about, I liked everything you said, and you've said it before. I feel like making a venture out to the fort.
Ooh, for dinner? I guess we could do that.
You up for it, or you want to choose something closer? That's a trek.
It is a trek, especially on a Monday night.
Well, we can do it another night.
All right.
Think about it.
Okay.
But possibly a dinner venture to the fort. And of which, here's the purpose, really helping us define what we might consider a destination. Because from my previous experiences, the fort was a destination. I'll make that trek.
All right. So, once again, everyone, thank you for watching us on YouTube, Rumble, or listening to us on any one of our podcast platforms. We greatly appreciate that. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us get it to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And please leave some comments down below. We greatly appreciate that. And Jesse, you get to close us out again.
That piece with the comments, man, whether you have visited a restaurant you want us to enjoy, or you are a restaurant you want us to rate, please let us know so we can see that piece. Otherwise, don't go to national forests and go missing. Stay with a friend. Remember, strength in numbers. Don't go alone. If you go to the bathroom, keep someone in eyesight, or you might wake up 20 miles further from where you fell asleep, or just not wake up at all. But your clothes will be neatly folded on a rock. With that, remember, man, we can definitely only say the same. Life is great. Make sure you are having experiences, sharing fun. You don't have to trust or understand any of our Scotch reviews or restaurants, but that is our goal. So that's another opportunity for you to give us feedback. If these aren't making sense to you, you want more in one aspect, arena, area, then another, share that with us so we can go after that. That is our goal, is to make life great for others. Ironically, we're super selfless in our selfish conquest to enjoy experiences ourselves. We're putting ourselves out there to share it with you so that you guys can have the best experience possible for what you are looking for. I enjoy this ride. Thank you, Noah. As always, remember, life is great. Drink responsibly. And until next time, Scotchman! Cheers!
We hope you enjoyed this evening's episode of Scotch Hour. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you have not done so already, please become a Patron member, with memberships starting as low as $1 a month. Thank you, and hopefully you have a wonderful evening.